My name is Jess and welcome to the Storyteller Fox. Come along and listen to read aloud books, be it for bedtime, story time, or simply to read along.
The Nutcracker, retold by Emma Helbro, illustrated by Anna Larashi. This is a fairy tale called The Nutcracker. It's retold by Emma Helbro, illustrated by Anna Larashi. Read aloud by the Storyteller Fox. Chapter 1, Christmas Eve. By the way, before we start Chapter 1, I'd like to let us all know that a nutcracker is a wooden or a metal tool for cracking nutshells. When this story was written, nuts were a special Christmas treat. Some nutcrackers were even shaped like dolls. Chapter 1, Christmas Eve. A soft, fluffy layer of snow covered Clara's house on Christmas Eve. Inside, a party was in full swing, but one very special guest hadn't arrived. Clara watched for him at the window. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. "He's here!" she cried, dancing over and flinging open the door. It was Clara's godfather. She gave him a big hug. "What a warm welcome on such a chilly night," he said with a chuckle. Clara loved her godfather's visits. Something magical always happened when he was around. "I have a very special present for you this year," he told Clara as he placed a package under the tree. Chapter 2, The Mystery Present. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed thinking about her present. "It can't hurt if I just have a little peek," she thought. Finally, Clara tiptoed downstairs. Soon, she found the present, tied up with a big red bow. On the ribbon, there was a tag with a message. "Merry Christmas, Clara. I hope this protects you with love from your godfather." "I wonder what godfather means," thought Clara. Slowly, Clara untied the bow and folded back a corner of the paper. Inside, she found a wooden nutcracker doll dressed like a soldier. Just then, the clock struck midnight. Clara gave an enormous yawn. In a few minutes, she was fast asleep under the tree. What do you think happened? Chapter 3, The Magic Begins. Clara woke up with a start, feeling very confused. She couldn't remember where she was, and her doll had vanished. She looked around and saw she was under the Christmas tree, and it seemed to be growing. "What's happening?" she thought. But the tree wasn't growing. She was shrinking. Soon, she was as small as a mouse. Out of the corner of her eye, Clara thought she saw something leaping around. Frightened, she darted behind a present and heard the tree rustle behind her. Clara spun around. "Don't be afraid, Clara. I won't hurt you," said a friendly voice. Clara was astonished. Her doll had come to life. "I'm the Nutcracker Prince," he said with a bow, "and I'm here to protect you. The kitchen mice are plotting to kidnap you." The prince pulled out a whistle and gave a shrill bellow at once. At once, the lid of the toy box flew open and a long line of toy soldiers marched out. Standing in rows, they saluted the prince. "Attention!" he cried. "Clara needs our help. Prepare yourselves for battle, men. Wheels out the cannon. Wheel out the cannons. Mice began to appear in the shadows. Slowly they crept closer. Clara hid behind the prince. Steady, men, steady, he shouted. Wait for the signal and fire. Huge lumps of cheese flew from the cannons and struck down several mice. Some lumps landed in the corners and the other mice scampered after them. Excellent work, men, roared the prince as the last mouse vanished. But the fight wasn't over yet. Bravo, said an evil voice from the shadows. A mouse wearing a crown and an eye patch appeared. That's the Mouse King, the prince whispered to Clara. Is cheese the best you can do? Jeered the king. It'll take more than that to beat me. Now, hand over the girl. I'd rather die, said the prince. That can be arranged, sneered Mouse King, sneered. Soon, the prince and the Mouse King were locked in battle. Their swords clanged as they danced around the room. I'll make cream cheese out of you. Take that, you rascally rodent. Then disaster struck. The prince tripped on a lump of cheese and sprawled on the floor. Seizing his chance, the Mouse King put his sword to the prince's neck. Well, 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 I'm going to enjoy this, he said, laughing. As the Mouse King pulled back his sword, Clara ripped off her shoe and threw it as hard as she could at his head. He fell in a heap on the floor, knocked out cold. Chapter 4. Sleigh bells ringing. Clara rushed over to the prince. Are you all right? She cried. Yes, thanks to you, he said. We must celebrate, he added as Clara helped him up. I know just the place. The prince led Clara to a golden sleigh behind the Christmas tree and helped her aboard. Off we go, boys, the prince called to his 4 reindeer. As they gathered speed, the sleigh started to rise up into the air. They rode out through an open window and into the night. After some time, they came to a forest covered with crisp white snow. We're nearly at our first stop, the prince announced. Hold on, we're going down. The snow crunched under the reindeer's feet as they landed. Just then, a beautiful lady dressed in sparkling white appeared among the trees. Clara, I'd like you to meet my good friend, the Ice Queen, said the prince. What a lovely surprise. The queen led them to her icy palace, which glistened in the moonlight. Inside, icicles, chandeliers hung from every ceiling. You've arrived in time for the dances, said the queen as they walked into a grand ballroom. A piano began to play, and 8 ballerinas dressed in silver and white twirled into the middle of the room. They twinkled like snowflakes as they spun around. I'll always remember this, whispered Clara to the prince as the music came to an end. After a game of catch with the palace poodle, it was time to leave. Do we really have to go? Sighed Clara. Yes, we really do, said the prince. There's something else I want you to meet. There's someone else I want you to meet. And we don't have much time. Goodbye. Chapter 5. The Land of Sweets. Clara gasped when they reached their next stop. The trees were bursting with marshmallow blossoms and lollipop flowers sprouted from the ground. Then Clara saw that the mountains were topped with melted chocolate and milkshake rivers flowed down them. Where are we? She asked, amazed. The land of sweets, the prince replied. Before them stood a huge marzipan castle decorated with all kinds of treats. Lifting Clara from the sleigh, he sat her down on the palace steps, and a fanfare of trumpets rang out. At the top, the doors opened and a fairy appeared, dressed from head to toe in pink. Clara, this is the Sugar Plum Fairy, said the prince. She rules over the land of sweets. I hope you have a sweet tooth, said the Sugar Plum Fairy with a smile. She led them into a grand hall where the tables were covered with chocolate cakes, cookies, and candy swirls. Watch the wobbly chairs, whispered the prince as Clara sat down. They're made of raspberry mousse. Clara ate until she thought she'd pop. After the feast, a band struck up and dancers from around the world performed for Clara. First came the dance of chocolate, and a Spanish pair spun around to snapping castanets. Next came the exotic dance of coffee. A beautiful Arabian princess danced with smooth, swirling movements in time to soft, soothing music. The third group of dancers had come all the way from China to entertain everyone with their tea dance. Many more dances followed, each one showing something good to eat or drink. But the final dance was very different. A group of ballerinas, all dressed as flowers, performed a slow waltz for Clara. Their arms unfolded gracefully like the petals. Their arms unfolded gracefully like the petals of a flower as they weaved in and out of each other. And now I'm afraid it's time for us to go home, said the prince sadly. With a sigh, Clara climbed into the sleigh and waved goodbye to the Sugar Plum Fairy. Thank you for an amazing evening, Nutcracker Prince, said Clara, with a yawn. She was so tired that she fell asleep on his shoulder. When Clara woke up, she was back under the Christmas tree and the prince was gone. Only her doll lay beside her. Oh, it's only a dream, she cried, but it seemed so real. Just then Clara spotted the tag that her godfather had attached to her present. I hope this protects you, it said. I wonder if that means he knew the Nutcracker Prince would rescue me, thought Clara. Maybe it wasn't just a dream. The Nutcracker was written by a German writer and composer named E.T.A. Hoffmann in 1816. Later, it was adopted by Alexandre Dumas, a French writer who also wrote The Three Musketeers. In 1892, a Russian composer named Tchaikovsky turned the version by Dumas into a ballad which is now performed all over the world. Well, how did you like the adventure of the little girl and the Nutcracker? Wasn't that very exciting?
The end. And that's the end of our story time. For more bedtime stories, you can check on our YouTube playlist or listen to more storytime compilations at the Storyteller Fox. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.